Imagine you've been waiting 8 years. 8 years keeping your lightstick in a drawer. 8 years where every time BTS announced a concert in another country, all you could do was open Twitter and scroll through photos of people who were luckier than you. 8 years of asking yourself when your turn was finally going to come. And then the night of April 17th, 2026 arrives. You're sitting inside Tokyo Dome. The lights start to go down. And suddenly, with no announcement, nothing on the set list, a melody begins to play. And you know immediately, that's Crystal Snow. Nobody was ready for that. Nobody could have been. And that's exactly what makes that moment one of the most historic things that has ever happened on a BTS stage. Not because it was planned, but precisely because it wasn't. But before we go deeper into the Crystal Snow moment itself, we need to talk about the bigger picture. Because without understanding the context, you won't really be able to feel the full weight of what happened that night. The last time BTS performed in Japan was November 2018. Almost 8 years ago. In 8 years, the world changed drastically. A global pandemic happened. The way humans interact with each other changed. And what hit fans the hardest? All 7 BTS members one by one entered mandatory military service, disappeared from stages, and the K-pop world kept moving without them. Japanese fans who had once watched BTS at Tokyo Dome could only hold onto those memories, put their lightstick somewhere safe, and wait. 8 years is a very long time. Kids who came to BTS concerts as high schoolers are now college graduates with full-time jobs. But they were still waiting. And on April 17th, 2026, that wait finally ended. BTS World Tour Arirang in Tokyo. 2 nights at Tokyo Dome. Both sold out completely. A total of 110,000 fans over 2 days. That number alone is not small, it's a statement. A statement that 8 years changed nothing. That the bond between BTS and their Japanese fans remained just as strong, just as deep, just as real as it ever was. From the very first second Jimin stepped onto that stage, it was already clear this was going to be something different. His long blonde hair, even longer than it was at the opening Goyang Stadium shows in early April, which had already broken the internet, flowed freely, moving like a character straight out of a manga page. People online immediately lost their words. Some just typed fictional. Some sent screenshots with no caption at all because there simply weren't words that felt adequate. But Jimin is not a fictional character. And that's exactly why everything he did that night felt so much heavier than any fiction could. During Fire, even in the middle of physically demanding movements, even through the heavy breathing that follows intense choreography, Jimin's voice still filled Tokyo Dome with explosive high notes. People watching through the live stream wrote that they couldn't believe a voice like that could come out of someone who had just moved that hard. Not a voice that simply came out. A voice that went straight into your chest, grabbed something there, and refused to let go. And then Crystal Snow happened. Nobody knew the song was going to be performed. It wasn't on the official set list. It wasn't part of the plan. Crystal Snow is a Japanese BTS track from December 2017, nearly a decade ago, that was part of one of their Japanese singles, but never became an international mega hit. It's not Dynamite. It's not Butter. It's not the song that comes to mind when people who aren't ARMY hear the name BTS. But for the ARMY who loves it, Crystal Snow is something completely different. Deeply personal. Quietly devastating. It's a ballad about the fragility of love, about time moving too fast, about someone who wants to hold the person they love before everything disappears like melting snow. Jimin's lines in the song, Kimio Dakashimetai, Keet Shermao Me and I Moichido, translate roughly to I want to hold you one more time before you disappear. And then there's the question that echoes throughout the whole song, can I touch your heart? When that opening melody began playing inside Tokyo Dome that night, there was a brief pause. A moment where the entire dome seemed to hold its breath at the same time. Everyone's brain was processing, is this actually the song they're hearing right now? And when the confirmation arrived, when the first notes became unmistakable, what happened next can only be described as an emotional tsunami. People cried. Not quiet crying. The kind of crying that happens when you've been holding something in for a very long time and you finally can't anymore. Videos that circulated after the concert captured those moments. Faces in the crowd, lightsticks trembling in trembling hands, mouths mouthing along to the words even as voices got caught in throats full of tears. There's something worth pausing on here that doesn't get talked about enough. Crystal Snow is not an easy song to sing. It requires a kind of vocal control that is almost the opposite of the explosive power Jimin had just been demonstrating through songs like Fire and Not Today. Where those songs demand force, Crystal Snow demands stillness. It demands precision. It demands the ability to shift from a stage presence that fills an entire dome down to something that feels like a private conversation. The fact that Jimin could make that transition, from that level of physical performance to Crystal Snow, without losing a single ounce of emotional authenticity, is the kind of thing that separates a great performer from a truly special one. And 55,000 people in that building felt that difference in real time. And Jimin sang it live, fully live. This is important to emphasize because there's a larger context here. Before the Tokyo Dome shows, there had been a significant wave of online discussion around lip-syncing allegations after a rehearsal video surfaced. The issue made noise, made some people uncomfortable. And then Tokyo Dome happened. And then Crystal Snow happened. The clip of Jimin singing his part in that song spread across every corner of the internet. His voice was clearly audible above the backing track. No doubt, no question. Vocals that were alive, breathing, floating above 55,000 people listening in something that felt almost sacred. Koreaboo reported how fan reactions flooded every platform the moment that clip went viral. One of the most widely shared comments read, "His voice feels like it's healing something." The word used was healing. And on Twitter, someone wrote, "I'm sobbing. Jimin, you were not supposed to sing it live." That sentence itself captures something exactly right. Because nobody expected it. Nobody was prepared. And that's precisely why the impact hit twice as hard. Star News reported that Jimin's vocals during Crystal Snow earned the description "stardust tone" from the audience in attendance. A phrase used to describe a vocal quality that feels like something falling from the sky, delicate but cutting through everything. And the hashtag silky voice Jimin trended in real time after that night. There are layers of meaning behind the decision to perform Crystal Snow that night that are worth sitting with for a moment. Crystal Snow is a song about someone who wants to hold on before everything disappears. Its lyrics are built around the metaphor of crystal snow, something beautiful, but also fragile, but also temporary. Snow can't be stopped. Love can't be stopped. Time can't be stopped. But there's a very human impulse to try anyway. Moichido, one more time, before everything goes. When Jimin sang that song at Tokyo Dome, in front of 55,000 people who had just waited 8 years, the entire dimension of the song shifted. It wasn't only Jimin singing to his fans. It could just as easily be read as the fans singing to Jimin. Because during those 8 years, Japanese fans were carrying the exact same feeling. They also wanted to hold on before it all disappeared again. They also wanted one more time. And Crystal Snow became the space where both directions of that feeling could finally meet. Think about what it means to choose that song at that specific moment. Jimin has access to an enormous catalog. He could have chosen any number of songs that would have worked beautifully for that stage. But Crystal Snow carries something the others don't. It carries the specific weight of a relationship that was interrupted. BTS and Japan have a history that goes back to the very beginning. Japan was one of the first international markets that truly embraced BTS before the rest of the world caught on. Japanese fans didn't just come late to the party. In many ways, they were some of the very first people who believed. And to come back to those fans, after everything that happened, after years of separation, and to sing them a song about wanting to hold on before things disappear, that's not a random setlist decision. That's intentional. That's Jimin communicating something that no press statement or Wever's post could ever fully say. But that night wasn't only about Crystal Snow. Because on day 2, April 18th, Jimin brought something different onto that stage. Something even more personal than a song. He brought a letter. A handwritten letter. Written in Japanese. Jimin read that letter aloud in front of 55,000 people. He talked about how happy he was to finally be able to meet Japanese fans again after so long. He said that returning to Tokyo Dome after 8 years was something that could never have happened without them, without his fans. And then he added something that made everyone laugh through their tears, referencing Jin in a way that was very classically BTS internal humor, the kind of joke that only makes sense if you follow their world long enough to understand the dynamics between the members. Think about what it takes to write a letter in Japanese and then read it aloud in front of 55,000 people. That's not something you do casually. That's not a PR move or a stage gimmick. A handwritten letter is one of the most deliberate, most vulnerable things a person can choose to bring into a room. It says, "I sat down somewhere quiet, alone, and I thought about what I actually wanted to say to you. Not what sounded good, not what was expected, what I actually meant." And Jimin did that. In Japanese, a language that carries its own layer of significance for that specific audience, for those specific fans who have been with BTS since the very early days. The choice to write in Japanese wasn't accidental either. It was a way of saying, "I came all the way here for you. Not for the venue, not for the headline, not for the tour stop. For you." And at the end of the letter, he said something that felt like a spoiler. He said, "These 2 days passed in the blink of an eye, but is today really the last day?" That question was never fully answered. No date, no concrete place. But the tone behind it was enough to make everyone inside that dome smile and cry at the same time. Because it felt like a promise. After all of that, after Crystal Snow, after the handwritten letter, after 2 nights that wrung out every emotion imaginable, Jimin walked out of Tokyo Dome. And that photo, the one you saw in the thumbnail of this video, is that moment. Blonde hair still flowing, black leather jacket, steps that were slow but certain, walking toward a black SUV that was already waiting. Head slightly down, like someone carrying something enormous inside their chest that they haven't yet figured out how to put down. There's something incredibly powerful about that image. On one level, it's a completely ordinary scene. Someone who just finished work, walking to their car, going home. But on another level, when you know what just happened inside that venue, when you know how much emotion was just released, how many tears fell, how much waiting was finally paid off, that simple image carries an enormous weight. For the fans waiting outside, some of whom had been standing there for hours before the concert even began, the moment of seeing Jimin pass by before getting into the car is something they will remember for the rest of their lives. Not because anything dramatic happened, precisely because the opposite was true. Because of the peace on his face, the steadiness in his steps, the way he moved like someone who knows they gave everything they had and there is nothing left to regret. There's a specific kind of quiet that follows a truly great performance. Not the silence of emptiness, the silence of fullness, when something has been so completely given and so completely received that words become unnecessary. That's the quiet that surrounded Jimin walking out of Tokyo Dome that night. It wasn't the exit of someone who was rushing to the next thing. It wasn't the exit of someone going through the motions of a world tour. It was the exit of someone who understood exactly what the last 2 nights meant to the people inside that building and to himself. And there's something in that, in the way he carried himself in that small, quiet, completely undramatic moment, that tells you more about who Jimin is as a performer and as a person than any interview ever could. Some people perform for the applause. Some people perform because it's what they do. And then there are the rare ones who perform because they genuinely cannot imagine giving the people in front of them anything less than everything. Jimin is one of those rare ones. There's a larger narrative being built by Jimin in the Arirang era. And Tokyo Dome is one of the most important chapters of that narrative. From Gwanghwamun Square in March, to the opening nights at Goyang Stadium in early April, to Crystal Snow at Tokyo Dome, there's a very clear thread connecting all of it. Jimin has never simply been present on a stage. He has always been there completely. Every song, every vocal note, every artistic choice. It's not something being executed mechanically. It's something that feels like it's being paid back, like an emotional debt that had been accumulating for years and is finally being settled. And what's most remarkable is that in the middle of the largest tour in K-pop history, under all the pressure and expectation that comes with that, Jimin still has the ability to make someone feel that what's happening in front of them exists because of them. Not because of a schedule, not because of a contract, not because of a marketing strategy, but because he genuinely wants them to feel something real. The Arirang tour still has a long road ahead. More cities, more venues, more nights that haven't happened yet. But based on everything that has already unfolded, Gwanghwamun Square, Goyang, and now Tokyo Dome, there's something every person following this tour now understands. Every single night carries the potential for a Crystal Snow moment. Something not on the set list. Something nobody expected. Something that arrives out of nowhere and immediately becomes the thing everyone is still talking about a week later. Jimin has proven, repeatedly and without exception, that he treats every stage like it might be the last one. Not in a desperate way. In the way that someone treats something when they know exactly how precious it is. And that quality, that awareness, is what makes following his journey right now feel less like being a fan of a pop star and more like witnessing something that genuinely matters. Crystal Snow is a song about someone who wants to hold on before everything disappears. And Jimin sang it at Tokyo Dome 8 years after the last visit, in front of 110,000 people who had waited longer than they should ever have had to wait. Moichido, one more time. And that night, one more time finally happened. And then he walked out of that dome in a black leather jacket and flowing blonde hair, got into the car and left. But something he left behind inside that building, something he left inside every single person who was there, did not leave with him. Tokyo Dome, April 17th and 18th, 2026, will be remembered as one of the greatest moments in BTS's entire journey. And Jimin, as always, was at the very heart of it. If you watched this video all the way to the end, thank you for being here. If this made you feel something, whether that's Crystal Snow nostalgia, or pride in Jimin, or just the urge to go rewatch every clip from that night, hit like and subscribe so you never miss the next BTS video on this channel. See you in the next one.